Hello everyone. Tonight's show is dedicated to a personal friend of mine, Clint Kapp, who unfortunately passed away a little over a year ago. He was the one who got me into building coils and using RDAs and RDTAs, and he bought me my first e-cig mod, bought me a steam crave tank. He bought me a coil building kit and even sent along the wire and the cotton for it. And for him, I couldn't believe it when he did it, but he and I would talk over Skype and he would show me in the video how to build the coils. I was a little hesitant at first, but you know what? I learned it, and I learned a lot from him. And everyone who makes these videos on coils and how to build them, you can find those all over YouTube. But there are some things about coils that people aren't talking about. So give a listen to this episode, and if you're not careful, you might just learn something. Today I'm going to be talking all about coils. Not just any coils, not pre-built coils, but the kind of coils that you build for yourself for RTAs, RDAs, and some of the other rebuildables. So, a lot of people out there, when you first start vaping, you start with a vape pen, and those come with pre-built coils. Maybe then you'll move up to a sub-ohm mod, and you get coils that look kind of like this. These are pre-built. They've got, as you can see, they've got the cotton and the wire built in. And these are fine. But just as an example, take a look at the picture here. These coils, to buy them pre-made, will run you anywhere from $10 to $20 for 5 pre-built coils, depending on what type they are. Now the thing is you can actually build coils yourself. Now remember that, $10 to $20. Now, I have a roll of 100 feet of 316 stainless steel. This cost me less than $6. I have a big old bag here. I'm going to block my face here for a second. This is Muji cotton. This is a lot of Japanese organic cotton. Now you combine the two of these, and I have enough to make new coils for well over a year. So the total cost of the wire and the Muji cotton was under $9, so we're talking about $14 basically. Now these coils cost me $14 for 5. I've managed to stretch them out and make one of these coils last for 2 months. Some people will say they last about a week. So that can get a little expensive. Now, there's something else too with pre-built coils that you have to keep in mind, is it's that wick right there in the center. The wick will gunk up. The coils inside also will gunk up a bit, but the problem is that the wick inside will tend to retain flavor no matter how much you wash it. I know I have one that I put a root beer flavor in a tank using one of these. And I tried a couple of other flavors afterwards. I even tried rinsing it in alcohol and then water and soaking it. The root beer flavor was still there every time I took a hit. I mean, anything I would put in there, I would get root beer. When you're building your own coils, you don't have to worry about that. Because they're so cheap, you can change them more often. I don't have to, but I typically change coils about once a week. I am actually, this RDTA, the steam crave, I have had the same liquid in it for 2 months, and although after I finish a tank, I do tend to change the wick on it. It pretty much has had the same coil in it for 2 months, and it's going strong. The one thing you can do with hand-built coils as well is once you finish a tank, you rinse it off and everything, you might notice there's some gunk that builds up on the coils. You can dry burn them depending on the type of wire you're using. And that basically is with nothing in it, no cotton. You heat the coil up until it glows red, and what happens is it burns the gunk off and the coil will start to look good as new. After a while, the coil doesn't look as good as new, which is part of the reason why I change them every week, sometimes every 2 weeks. For building coils, I'm not going to show you how to do that because there's plenty of great videos on YouTube, but you can get a little coil jig like this. You have different size centers. You just pop it in, stick your wire down, there's a little hole in the side. I always hold my thumb on it, and then I start to spin it around, and I stick this down, and I twist until I get the number of coils I want, or wraps I should say. These are cheap. These cost, you can get these under $10. You can get a coil kit for, $20, sometimes up to $30, depending on what it has in it. And those are great. Check out some of the other videos that are on YouTube for how to build coils. The reality is you will go through a bit of the wire when you're starting to learn how to do it, but eventually it won't be a problem. You'll learn. It's very easy. Now, there are guys out there that are making these gorgeous coils. I certainly would not mind having a picture of one up on my wall because it's got this industrial artistry about it. And well, let's just take a look at the various types of coils you can have in an atomizer. I have a little slideshow I put together, so let's roll the slideshow. Now you notice those all started from the simplest to the most complex. Now, the reality is, though, do the more complex ones work that much better? The answer is no, they don't. When I first started building coils, typically everyone was using Kanthal coil, and I would do 7 wraps and I would get 0.7 ohms. If I wanted lower, I would have to create 2 coils, and then it would be 2 coils of 7 wraps. If one is at 0.7, then 2 actually reduces it to 0.35. Now the problem with having dual coils, and there's some people even doing quad coils, the problem is if there's something that goes wrong, which coil is the problem? And this is where my next part, the coil science, comes in. Now, the reality is coils are getting bigger and thicker now. People are using, it started with the Clapton coil, where you took a single core and then you wrapped a thinner wire around it. Then they went for the fused Clapton coil that had 2 wires and with another one wrapped around. Then it went into the alien Claptons, and the Tiger coils, and every day it seems like there's a new sort of name that comes out for a different type of coil, and they all look really cool. They're getting thicker. Now, one of the things is that when you have a thicker coil, I can build a single coil now that will give me, as a matter of fact, this one in here is a fused Clapton, which means it has 2 cores with wire wrapped around it. It comes in at 0.19 ohms. I can get very low ohms without having to do dual or quad coils. This is great. The reality that you have to keep in mind is the more wire you have, the lower the resistance. Theoretically, you could get a really thick, like, I don't know, 18 gauge coil and just wrap that. And because you have more wire, it would give you a lower ohm with a single coil. And single coils seem to be the basis of where a lot of the rebuildables are going now. The thicker, more artistic coils, they look really pretty, but do they really work better? No, they're just thicker. There's more of it. The one thing that a lot of these coils do offer over, say, just a thick piece of wire is because there's different smaller bits of wire all clumped together, you get more surface area, which is something that you want with your liquid. Is the more area that's warmed up that the liquid can touch, then the more vape you're going to get out of it. This is a good thing. The problem is that some of these coils get so complex, they get little nooks and crannies where the e-liquid will drip into, and it'll create what's called spitting. And I think I can kind of demonstrate this here, because this is not exactly, the coil works good for me with the high chimney piece on top, but just listen. Oh, okay, get it up and on. Okay, you hear that popping sound. That is spitting. Now on this one, not so bad. I've got some distance. My coil is, where's my coil? My coil's way down here, and I'm taking a hit up here. But there's some where you might have, an 1/8 or a 1/16 of an inch away from where you're taking the hit to where the coil is, and you're going to feel that spittiness happen. Twisted coils tend to be this way because a lot of people don't tighten them up enough. What I have found works really the best is the simple Clapton coil. If you want to go for something with less ohms, faster, or not faster, but with less wraps, go for a fused Clapton coil, which has the 2 in it. That's what this one has. You can get lower ohms very easily. You have much more consistency to the build, and it all heats up very nicely. That was a bad Clapton build. I actually should replace that. That was a bad one to use as an example. But with the even surface area, you have much less spitting. You have, well, as I said, you have the even heating. And because I get to replace them more often because they're so cheap, I get great flavor out of them. I don't get any corruption of flavor when I switch flavors. It works out great for me. So this is something to keep in mind. Play around with it. Watch the other videos on building coils. Get yourself some wire. There are people even using screwdrivers to go around. I don't want to knock any of the guys who are building these artistic coils. Definitely keep building them. You're doing a great job. They look awesome. As I said, I would love to have photographs of them up on my walls here, because it would be something to talk about. But you don't really need one. You can work simpler to get the same effect. So keep that in mind and vape on.